Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here and for joining us for today's town hall about the LGBTQ Older Adults in Santa Clara County project. My name is Daniel Moretti. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm program manager with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs at the County of Santa Clara. I also wanted to make sure to introduce some of my colleagues at the Office of LGBTQ Affairs who are on the back end providing support. I'll invite them to introduce themselves.
Hey folks, my name is Sarah. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Senior Management Analyst at the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. Pleasure seeing each and every one of you this evening, even though it's virtually, totally get it. But thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Betancourt, pronouns he, him, his, and I'm a management aide with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. And thank you all so much for being here tonight.
So we're going to start with some introductions and welcome remarks. Then at about 5:15, we'll move to the overview of the survey findings and recommendations presented by Dr. Karen Fredrickson Goldsen. That'll be for about 30 minutes before we move into Q&A. So again, feel free to ask your questions throughout the presentation, either in the chat or in the Q&A function. At 6 o'clock, we'll be hearing some lived experiences, testimonials from LGBTQ older adults in Santa Clara County, as well as remarks from service providers. And then for the last portion of the event at 6:20, we'll have some opportunities for reflection and also hearing your input on the priorities that were shared before we close out at 6:30 with closing remarks. And don't want to stand in between you and your dinner, so we'll make sure that we try to stay on time. And we could go ahead and stop sharing our screen now. And it's really my pleasure to introduce the president of the Board of Supervisors, Mike Wasserman, who's going to share some welcome remarks with us.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Mike Wasserman, president of the Board of Supervisors. I identify as he, him, and his, and I want to thank you for inviting me to speak today. I was doing a sign to former supervisor Ken Yeager, who was in a march with me last weekend. And so it's always good to see Ken and Daniel and Sarah and everybody else that's part of this. On the board, I'm known as the numbers guy, and I believe that good decision-making is rooted in good data. The LGBTQ plus older adult study was approved by the Board of Supervisors back in December 2019. It is exciting that the findings and recommendations of the report are now available. For the first time, there is data representative of our local LGBTQ plus older adult community. The result of this study will help shape programs, policy, and resource allocations throughout our county for years to come. The county's been doing a good job over the last 11 years of doing a study to identify exactly where needs are and then getting the funding to those most important needs. And often we find needs that we had no idea existed. You are helping us by providing your input on what you'd like to see as next steps for supporting LGBTQ plus older adults in our community. Thank you again, Daniel, for the opportunity to speak to everybody. I hope you have a great evening, very educational and helpful. It's great to see so many members of the community reaching out and helping. And this is a huge step towards the county assisting in areas that not only are important, but areas that can do so much to help others. And again, all of you that were part of the rally that I was in with past Supervisor Yeager on Sunday, thank you for that. That was extremely exciting, especially to see so many young people out there, seeing adults setting examples and being out there expressing themselves, and support for simply love, just flat out love for everyone. Thank you again, Daniel. Take care.
Thank you so much, President Wasserman. We deeply appreciate you being here and for your ongoing collaboration. I now have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Ken Yeager, who, as you heard, was former supervisor and now executive director for the Baymet Community Foundation and has been a longtime champion for LGBTQ older adults. Ken, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing intro remarks with us.
Well, thank you, Daniel, and it's great to be here. It's always great to follow my good friend, Supervisor Mike Wasserman. I will say many of the same things that he just said, but not say them as well as he did. You know, it's an exciting time, and I also want to reflect on all the people that were there at the march in Los Gatos, and I know the Office of LGBTQ Affairs was well represented. So thank you for everybody who joined us. You know, it was in 2013. That's hard to believe, about 8 years ago or so, that as board president, I made the announcement that I wanted to have a survey done, a health study of the LGBTQ community. We never had done one before. And much like the senior study that you guys just did now, there was a lot of anecdotal evidence about issues that needed to be addressed, that problems that existed that were unique to the LGBTQ community. But anecdotes can only get you so far. And as Supervisor Wasserman said, you know, a lot of us just needed the data. And so along with the support of my colleagues, we were able to get the funding and do a very good outreach and survey of our community, which gave us a lot of just incredible information that we have been able to use. I think the issues were even more pronounced than we had thought. The percentages of people dealing with certain issues was higher than we thought. And so it really just sort of motivated us with that deeper dive of what we really needed to do. And that really has been, you know, the genesis of so many things that have happened afterwards, starting first and foremost with the creation of the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, which really was the first major program that was started. And then with all of the really talented people in the office working with so many different departments across the county, we really have just improved the services that we give to people, been able to hire the right people, create positions that have really made a difference. And I guess the one thing that I want to leave everybody with is that that's how the county operates. And when you think of all of the work that went into the senior study, it's going to be the same kind of aftermath afterwards, the ripples that will happen for many years afterwards as we build the support, as we get the programs, as we allocate the dollars. I think we're really going to see a remarkable change that we otherwise wouldn't have done it. So for everybody that was involved, I just really want to thank them. Always want to thank Maribel Martinez, who is the program manager for the Division of Equity and Social Justice, and you, Daniel, as the program manager for the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, and Dr. Goldsen for her remarkable work, and also everybody that was on the Senior Care Commission for the county. I want to thank you as well. I think you will be very proud of the results that are going to come from all of your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. And thanks also for your ongoing collaboration and leadership. Before we move into the presentation of findings, I wanted to provide a little bit more context about why we are here and how we got here. So as you may know, and it was discussed, the Office of LGBTQ Affairs is a policy and programs office. And a through line across our work is being guided by data. The establishment of our office, thanks to a board referral from former Supervisor Ken Yeager, who we just heard from, was in part to address the negative health disparities that were reported in data from the 2013 Status of LGBTQ Health Report in Santa Clara County. Me personally, I really love data because data is a storyteller, and data can be leveraged to apply a community-informed approach towards addressing systemic inequities. When the Office of LGBTQ Affairs was looking to assess services, resources, and supports for LGBTQ older adults, we noticed that there was a gap in data for our local community focused specifically on this population. Through the leadership of Maribel Martinez, the Office of LGBTQ Affairs took action to address this data gap and connected with Dr. Karen Fredrickson Goldsen, a leading international expert at the intersection of aging and LGBTQ identity, to collaborate on this project. And Dr. Goldsen had also led a very successful LGBTQ older adult study in San Francisco. So if you can imagine, this was way back in 2019 when plans were being developed. And as we all know, in early 2020, COVID hit and impacted everyone. We had to shift timelines and tactics to navigate the new reality we were in. But from the beginning, we designed the work to be a collaborative effort, and we prioritized the project to be applied research, meaning that the data would be used to inform action around creating the most responsive resources and services to support LGBTQ older adults to thrive. We created an advisory committee consisting of more than 20 community organizations, service providers, and government offices that informed every step of the process. That was from the design of the survey to community engagement during data collection, and all the way up to the final report and today's town hall. The advisory committee played an integral role in this project, and we can't thank them enough. But none of this would be possible without you, our vibrant community of LGBTQ older adults in Santa Clara County. You opened your hearts and minds and shared your experiences through the survey. We thank you and express our deepest gratitude for trusting us with your stories and experiences. We were blown away by the record number of responses to the survey. In the beginning, initially, we had hoped that we would get 300 responses. And it's remarkable to share that we received 3,218 responses total, making this one of the largest local studies of LGBTQ older adults in the country. This strong response, and during a pandemic no less, really tells us that our community wants to be heard. And we hear you. And we commit to continue to hear you. And we commit to continuing to center community voice in all of our efforts. So that brings us to today, and we're thrilled to have Dr. Goldsen here with us to share his findings from the survey and recommendations. Before I pass the mic over, I want to share more about her impressive body of work. Karen Fredrickson Goldsen, PhD, is principal of Goldsen Consulting. Dr. Goldsen is a nationally and internationally recognized scholar addressing equity and the intersections of health disparities, aging, and well-being in underserved, resilient communities. Characterized as a leader in aging and longevity research, she is principal investigator of multiple federally funded landmark studies, including the National Health, Aging, and Sexuality/Gender Study, Aging with Pride, the first longitudinal study of LGBTQ older adults. Because impact is a primary goal of her work, Dr. Goldsen has worked with the state and regional planning groups to gather the information necessary to improve access, programming, and policies for LGBTQ older adults. She is the author of many books and publications and has received numerous awards for her work. Her research has been cited by the leading news sources, including the New York Times, Washington Post, and US News and World Report, just to name a few, as well as more than 100 international news outlets. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dr. Goldsen.
Hello, it's such a pleasure to be here. And it is a sign of the times. This presentation is from my home to yours. And I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and principal of Goldsen Consulting. I want to thank you, Daniel. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So again, Daniel, I want to thank you. Daniel has been such a tremendous partner, incredible partner in this project, and has worked so tirelessly to make it a success. I also want to thank Maribel Martinez, the director of the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, again, for, as Daniel and others shared, she spearheaded this initiative and understood that need for research on the aging health and service needs of LGBTQ older adults. I want to thank former Supervisor Yeager for being an ongoing champion for LGBTQ people and older adults, and the Board of Supervisors for supporting this project. And I want to thank each and every member of the community advisory group, which was so essential for us to reach our goals, but also to really ensure that all voices of LGBTQ older adults were heard. And again, a special thank you to the over 3,000 LGBTQ older adults in Santa Clara County who made this project possible through their engagement and their commitment to create an engaged and vibrant future for our communities now and moving forward. My goal today really is to be able to share the findings with you and what we learned through the LGBTQ Older Adults in Santa Clara County project and what is needed next. First, I will provide just some context in terms of background, our goals, and how we were able to extend what we know, how we were able to fill those gaps. Next, I'll share with you the findings, including access to aging and health services, health and well-being, the impact of COVID-19, and the experiences of victimization, discrimination, and bias, and what we learned about housing and economic indicators, and social support, resilience, and resources. With the identification of the unmet needs in tandem with recognizing the incredible strengths and resilience in these communities, I will share the identified priorities and ideas for an action plan to move future priorities, programs, and policies forward. Just in terms of background, it is important to recognize that Santa Clara County is growing by age and by diversity. By 2060, it's estimated that older adults will comprise more than 26% of the county's population. And 1/5 of these older adults are considered low income, a number that has grown over the last 2 decades. We also know that LGBTQ adults, those 18 and older in California and in Santa Clara County, experience some health disparities compared to heterosexuals of similar age, such as lower rates of health insurance, difficulty accessing some types of care, and higher rates of some chronic diseases, including HIV. We also know that the COVID-19 pandemic has adversely impacted communities, and well, all of us to a certain extent, but especially those from marginalized communities. Yet despite the growing aging population within Santa Clara County, to date, we know little about the unique experiences of LGBTQ older adults. They just simply have not been evaluated. So LGBTQ Older Adult Project was designed, again, to better understand the challenges while raising the strengths and service needs of LGBTQ older adults, age 50 and older, living or working in Santa Clara County. We gathered information to meet these goals. First of all, awareness, to be able to increase awareness within county departments, service providers, and communities about the health and well-being of LGBTQ older adults. We also wanted to understand those needs and gaps, identify the service needs and gaps in resources for LGBTQ older adults to make recommendations that could and would inform priorities, programs, and services, and take into consideration all LGBTQ people, including subgroups that often are not represented in other projects. And we wanted to ensure that this was collaborative, that there would build more collaborations through this project among county departments, among service providers, communities, and LGBTQ older adults, all to ensure that LGBTQ older adults thrive. Because when one group thrives, it supports the entire Santa Clara County. So how did we go about this? To meet these goals, a community-based survey was designed to identify the unmet needs and to inform future priorities, programs, and policies. As one participant shared, I am an old-fashioned transgender person, yet fighting my age. But yet it's time to unveil my identity. I am afraid of old age, but now how has the world, how has it been changed? How can we change the world? So to meet these goals, again, we included those people age 50 and older that were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, two-spirit, gender non-binary, sexual or gender diverse, or those had been in a same-sex or same gender relationship, but didn't identify. And those that were, again, were 50 and older and living and working in Santa Clara County. We distributed the survey using many means, self-administered and anonymous survey, which was available online, paper, and via phone in English, Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. And they were distributed over 3 months from June 2021 to September 2021. Many were completed online. Again, we offered it many different ways for people. We wanted to ensure access and reach to everyone. We also recruited through community agencies and organizations serving LGBTQ communities. Postcards were mailed to every household in Santa Clara County with an adult 50 and older. And they were also distributed via community organizations and events and through social media ads. And again, the total responses, 3,218. This again is one of the largest surveys, a local survey that's ever been completed among LGBTQ older adults, is likely the largest for a local survey. So what did we find? Or first of all, I just want to mention, our goal again was to ensure a demographically diverse sample. LGBTQ is not a monolithic group. And at times when we say LGBTQ, that acronym, I always fear that it may be outdated before I finish the talk. We need to think about the diversity within the community, and it was our work and goal to be able to reach all segments of our community. Again, ensuring that all were represented in many previous work, especially among older adults. So many of our communities, such as transgender, non-binary, and also bisexual, people have not been included. So by race and ethnicity, we did, in terms of through our outreach, more than half of the sample were Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC, including Latin and Hispanic, Latinx, and Hispanic. Older adults, 27%, Black, African American, 22%, Pacific Islanders, and Asian, 4%, multiracial, 2%, American Indian, Alaska Native, 2%. And among sexual identity, we've had very good representation among lesbians, 23%, gay men, 27%, bisexual men and women, 32%, sexually diverse or queer, 17%, heterosexual, 2%. In terms of gender identity and expression, 1/4 of the older adults participants identified as transgender, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming, or gender diverse. And by age, we had very good representation. Among those 50 to 59, 46%, age 60 to 69, 42%, and among those 70 and older, 13%. Because of the large number, this actually was a large group. We could do all the analysis across all age groups. The youngest participant was 50, and the oldest was 106 years old. In terms of income and distribution, many were living in poverty, yet the majority, 66%, had an education level of some college or more. We wanted to understand service needs. When we asked about potential activities, programs, and services of most interest, the top 5 were access to free movies or other entertainment, safe walking spaces, social and group activities, LGBTQ specific activities, services, and programs, and support with technology. About 1/5 of the participants reported that some activities, services, and programs that they had needed in the past 12 months, they did not use because they were not perceived as LGBTQ culturally inclusive. 1/5 did not have health insurance, and those with a high school education or less, and those living with HIV and AIDS were less likely to have health insurance. About half of the participants did not have a will or power of attorney. 1 out of 4 LGBTQ older adults were not out to a healthcare provider. Those most likely not to be out were bisexuals, Black, African Americans, Hispanic and Latinx, and those living in poverty, those with a high school education or less, and those living with HIV and AIDS. This is important because the American Medical Association states that physicians' failure to recognize and patients' reluctance to disclose can lead to failure to diagnose important medical problems. We also, when we looked at health and well-being, about 1 in 13 participants reported frequent poor physical health and frequent mental distress. And those most likely included transgender older adults, American Indian or Alaska Native, And what we also found was that about half had a disability. And the highest rates, again, was among, well, diverse, sexually diverse and queer participants. Lesbians also had a very high rate of disability. 1/4 experienced confusion or memory loss in the past 12 months. And in the past week, only about half of the participants reported that their basic needs were met, including food, cleanliness, and safety for the last 5 to 7 days. There were some positive indicators too, and this is important. 2/3 exercised in the past month and they showed and had reported relatively low rates of excessive drinking or substance abuse. But there were some risk groups, especially for excessive drinking and substance abuse, including among bisexual men, those living with poverty with less education, and those living with HIV and AIDS. It is concerning that about 1/3 of the participants had seriously thought about suicide or self-harm in the past 12 months. And this was most common among bisexual women and transgender participants. We also see high risk among those living in poverty and those with a high school education or less. The impact of COVID-19, the pandemic, has significantly impacted the health and well-being of Americans. And again, as I mentioned, especially those in marginalized communities. Yet we don't know about COVID-19 and LGBTQ older adults. But in this study, 1/5 reported that they had had COVID-19, with most reporting lingering physical and mental health effects. 1/4 had not received a COVID-19 vaccine, with half of the sexually diverse and queer participants and transgender participants having not received a vaccine. Those living in West County, Cupertino, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Monte Sereno, Campbell, Holy City, Redwood Estates, they had the lowest rates of vaccination. The most common challenges regarding receiving the COVID-19 vaccine was these participants could not find where to get the vaccine, they were unable to complete registration, or they didn't have a computer or smartphone to register, or they didn't have transportation to get to the vaccine site. And many felt and didn't understand, and they felt they were not eligible. 1/3 reported that since the pandemic, they had fewer financial resources, less housing stability, more tobacco, alcohol, or other substance use, and more loneliness. 1/5 had lost their result as a result of COVID-19. One participant shared, "COVID-19 has altered my ability to grieve the loss of my wife. It has been difficult." It's important to note that there are important differences in vaccine rates by subgroups. And the reason I'm attending and explaining many of these subgroup differences is it's important to understand who's at greatest risk as we identify interventions and move forward. As this graph shows, 1/3 of Black, African American, and Hispanic, Latinx, LGBTQ older adults had not received a COVID-19 vaccine. Discrimination and victimization have been found to be highly associated with adverse physical and mental health in communities with health disparities, including LGBTQ older adults. And in Santa Clara County, 4 out of 10 have been treated unfairly, with less respect or discriminated against in the past 24 months due to being perceived as LGBTQ+. Most experiences of discrimination and bias occurred in specific settings, and the participants shared with us. Those with the highest rates were when accessing medical and health services, aging services, social services, and discrimination and bias in all across these settings. But intersectionality also matters. 1 in 5 reported being treated unfairly due to their age, due to their race or skin color, due to their gender. And 1 in 6 experienced elder abuse, being physically hurt, experiencing controlling or harassing behavior, verbal abuse or threatening behavior. Those in Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and Santa Clara were most likely to experience abuse compared to other regions. Those experiencing abuse, the 5 most common perpetrators included a spouse or partner, ex-spouse or ex-partner, child or stepchild, friend or stranger. When we think about elder abuse and these high rates, unfortunately, most did not report it. And the most common reason for not reporting was they did not trust authorities for being LGBTQ inclusive, or they feared they would not be treated appropriately. More than 80% reported interest in LGBTQ focused housing, with the highest rates among bisexual, transgender, Black, African American, Hispanic, Latinx, those living in poverty, those with lowest education, and those living with HIV. 1/2 of all participants reported they're not confident that they will be able to continue living in their current housing. The 5 top reasons they might have to move were economic, health, different needs related to aging, such as needing grab bars, such as safety, lack of stability in the housing situation, and an unsafe environment as a result of being LGBTQ+. 2/3 lived in poverty, and many can't pay their bills, and many have limited discretionary financial resources available for other needs. Sexually diverse and queer participants were less likely to own a home compared to others. Nearly 7.6% reported living in transitional housing or very unstable housing, and 0.2% were unhoused or homeless. It was very high, as I mentioned, with 80% interested in LGBTQ focused housing. As one participant shared, housing for seniors in the LGBTQ community is becoming more difficult since most landlords are actively practicing age discrimination, and there's no help from others to enforce the current tenant laws. We just need a rent increase. We are just one rent increase or eviction away from being homeless. While many LGBTQ older adults face challenges, despite the adversity they face, LGBTQ older adults have connected, built relationships, and developed our very communities. Social support, in particular, has been shown to be protective of a variety of life stressors and traumas. 3/4 of the LGBTQ older adult participants are satisfied with their lives. Most are very resilient, such as bouncing back quickly after hard times. More than half have received the social and emotional support they need. And more than 80% are comfortable using the internet as one way to stay connected. So these supports and strengths of LGBTQ older adults are incredibly important. We also have to understand that we have a group that's also at very great risk. 1 in 10 have no current support. 2/3 lack companionship or have felt left out or felt isolated. Almost 1/5 are living alone, with gay men, sexually diverse, queer, and American Indian, Alaska Native, and those 70 and older are most likely to live alone. And there's no issue with living alone, except for they may be placed eventually at risk of social isolation. LGBTQ older adults are an important resource to Santa Clara County. They have high rates of volunteering, and they engage in many social engagement activities. It really illustrates how this community supports the county, and they give back to the county. What next? How does the community and the county respond to these findings? What next? Really, in terms of collaboration with the advisory committee, and based on that information that we gathered, we developed several priorities for moving forward. Priority 1, as a first step, to address the challenges and service and policy needs revealed today, it's imperative that an action task force with diverse representation be formed. And it's important that the Santa Clara County government, that aging-related community-based organizations and service providers, that LGBTQ+ organizations and advocacy groups, and that older adult community members and that other key stakeholders engage in this task force to be able to move this important work forward. It's also critical that the action task force develop a work plan that establishes actionable priorities that are both implementable and measurable. And it will be important that the work plan set specific goals and targets, with each goal having a strategy and each strategy having linked to initiatives, and that there's a way to evaluate progress in a way very similar to the governor's work plan, aging work plan, in order to be able to have a strategy and then be able to evaluate it. We also developed specific priorities for all of you in the audience and the action task force to consider. In each area, we identified a priority recommendation along with others to consider. Now, please listen carefully, because later this evening, you're going to have an opportunity to vote on these priorities so that your voice is heard and you're part of setting the priorities moving forward. As a priority recommendation, one is to be able to provide LGBTQ cultural inclusive training for aging service providers and ensure attention to subgroups at high risk in this community. We also have additional considerations. Ensure the availability of LGBTQ tailored health and wellness resources and materials. Train aging and health and wellness case managers to support LGBTQ older adults, and even to be able to attend medical and other service appointments. Again, then they can share communication strategies and, with both the older adult, but also mirror appropriate communication for providers. The importance of expanding suicide prevention programs, addressing risk factors and those subgroups at greatest risk, and ensure access to nutritious, no-cost food in safe environments. In terms of COVID-19, the priority recommendation: prioritize COVID-19 prevention and aid for LGBTQ older adults, taking into consideration those with the lowest vaccine rates. And another consideration is advocate for digital inclusion for all older adults by working with the Digital Inclusion Work Group to offer resources and pledge connection, devices, and training for LGBTQ older adults that do not have connectivity. In terms of enhancing access to services, dedicate ongoing funding for tailored social activities, service, and programs for LGBTQ older adults. We also had additional considerations. Develop a comprehensive website for information and assistance on aging services for LGBTQ older adults. Expand educational campaigns to promote prevention and early detection. Again, preventative measures such as mammograms and HIV testing. Develop a county plan to address LGBTQ healthcare access and the behavioral health issues for those at greatest risk. Develop and implement low or no cost legal support for LGBTQ older adults and their families. Expand the Healthy Brain Initiative to build and raise awareness of brain health, to protect against the early onset and screen early for dementia. Also, in terms of reducing discrimination, bias, and abuse, our priority recommendation is strengthen staffing at adult protective services in investigation, enforcement, and supports for LGBTQ older adults experiencing abuse, and ensure they're trained to be able to respond appropriately to these older adults. We also had additional recommendations: education and public forums, specifically on explicit and implicit bias, and ensure that the protections covered by anti-discrimination and hate laws are understood, and that people know how to report, and that people are safe to report. Also, establish Know Your Rights campaign for LGBTQ older adults to promote elder justice. Be able to ensure the enforcement, education, and training regarding anti-discrimination laws. They are needed within specific service settings, including aging and social services, medical and health services, skilled nursing facilities and nursing homes, senior centers, and public places. In terms of strengthening housing and economic stability, priority recommendation is develop LGBTQ plus focused affordable housing for these older adults. We also had additional considerations: enhance the support necessary for LGBTQ individuals to retain existing housing and prioritize the needs and experiences of LGBTQ communities in homelessness prevention and transitional housing, as well as the related service efforts. Recognize the documented economic disparities that LGBTQ older adults face in Santa Clara County, and include the LGBTQ community in county efforts to assess and diminish these economic disparities. Also, expand opportunities for senior employment and training programs for LGBTQ older adults. In terms of building upon the strengths, the support, the resilience, and the resources, all of these recommendations need to build on the strengths, but to also enhance social support, resilience, and resources. Develop the LGBTQ community volunteer registry to connect LGBT older adults with community members to provide support and short-term care. In addition to this priority recommendation, there's additional considerations. Publicly recognize and celebrate the important contributions of LGBTQ older adults. Increase the outreach and support for unpaid and paid caregivers in LGBTQ communities. And strengthen the efficacy in LGBTQ communities by developing partnerships to design, implement, and evaluate evidence-based programs tailored to address the distinct needs of LGBTQ older adults, their caregivers, and their families. Also, it will be important for moving forward to design and implement metrics to measure progress toward meeting the goals, targets, and initiatives of these priorities and these projects. This will be important. It will also be important to ensure the incorporation of sex, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, and behavior, and also include intersex and those sexual and gender diverse people in Santa Clara County collection efforts and in the reports, as was noted early, the importance of having this information by then to be able to take action. And ensure that you provide training for collecting data, because many people are interested in knowing, but they simply don't know how to ask the questions. So it's important that staff knows how to collect this data. Now, there are many, this is a lot, this information is really highlighted in the LGBTQ plus older adult in Santa Clara County report. And I tried to select out some of the highlights, but again, it'd be important for everyone to take a look at the executive summary and the full report, both that will be released and available at the end of this week. Again, both through the Office of LGBTQ Affairs website and our website at the Santa Clara Survey Project. And again, it's been a real pleasure working with your community, working with the advisory group, working with Daniel and all others to be able to move this forward. And I feel I'm both excited about next steps, and I think you have the information needed. And now that information can inform programs, services, and policies to create a Santa Clara County in which LGBTQ older adults thrive, in which all people at Santa Clara thrive. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goldsen, for all of the rich information, data, and analysis. Really appreciate it. And again, just echoing what Dr. Goldsen shared, that the full executive summary and the full report, we will make sure everyone who registered for tonight will get a copy of that when it's released at the end of this week. So we'll follow up, as well as the recording of today's presentation, and it'll be available on both our website and the Santa Clara survey.org website as well. We'll go ahead and open it up to questions. I see we have some already in our Q&A. So I'll go ahead and read those for you, Dr. Goldsen. So in the portion that was talking about the demographics and participants with disabilities, an attendee asks, do we know what kind of disabilities? Are we referring to only physical disabilities, or does this also include mental health disabilities?
That's a very good question, because how we measure disability in this, we did have questions regarding mental health. That was separate, but we did ask in terms of disability, both in terms of physical disabilities, but also in terms of hearing, sight. And there were about 6 different indicators that we used to be able to measure it more broadly. And disability is an important issue, again, for all older adult populations, but disability does start earlier in the LGBTQ community, and LGBTQ older adults do definitely have higher rates of disability. It's a disparity in Santa Clara County.
Thank you so much. Another question that we had is, how do these statistics compare with the general population? Example, housing is a problem for the whole population? ?
No, I think that's a really good point, because one thing we have to realize is that LGBTQ older adults do experience some issues related to aging or health or wellness, and some difficulties that older adults in general face. But what is really important to understand is that they still have greater disparities. More LGBTQ older adults tend to be impacted. So while we see some of those, common issues that may face older adults, there's greater disparities. In terms of housing and some of the findings, I thought it was very high. I've had the opportunity to work with numerous communities, and I thought these findings in terms of the housing disparities and the instability in housing, while that is high, and we have issues with housing instability across this nation, I thought these were very high in terms of the issues that these participants shared in terms of Santa Clara County. So I would say they were elevated, and that's why I think that is one reason why we prioritize that. There's a real need in Santa Clara County, and that is high compared to the averages in terms of the work that I've led, as well as other work that I have seen.
Thank you so much. And another question that came through the Q&A, the participant shares, maybe kind of a geeky statistics question on the report data. I already love it. I love where this is going already. Do we feel like we got a representative sample? In parentheses, I was surprised by the composition by race/ethnicity participation, especially low for Asian and Asian American.
Yes.
And if we don't think it was representative, is there an opportunity to go back in some way to provide more access to any groups that were underrepresented?
I want to say, first of all, because of the large group, that the number of participants, over 3,200 that participated, we did have large enough subgroups to do the analysis by subgroup, both by race and ethnicity among the groups. But the one thing I want to say is, while I do work, with representative data for some projects, our goal here was not to obtain a representative sample, as much as it was to be able to ensure that we had a demographically diverse sample. And the reason we wanted a demographically diverse sample is because in many of these projects, or most of these projects, they may claim that they're that there's generalizability. But what happens is most of them have not reached out to the hardest to reach populations. And so that was our goal, was to ensure that we were able to reach, especially those that are hard to reach. Now, would it be, it's always important to be able to reach out to all different communities. And I agree, for example, within some racial and ethnic groups, Asian and Pacific Islanders. It was a smaller group. We did a lot of outreach, and a number of people completed the survey in other languages also. But what we did do is we did still have a large enough group that we could go and do a comparison of all subgroup differences. I hope that makes sense. So we did achieve the goal of ensuring that those that were underrepresented, traditionally, for example, in most data collection, in many data collection efforts, transgender older adults aren't included, but there's still more work to be done. I agree on that.
Thank you so much. Another question is from a participant that says, inclusive community is important for all of us. How to achieve this? While LGBTQ plus identity is important, I feel it is critical to integrate, and that means racially, by age, by income, etc. Any ideas here?
Well, I think that that's very important. And in fact, we do find that the intersectionality and the different aspects of people's lives are, we have to take into consideration all aspects of people's identity, or it wouldn't be, that's why even with the bias where we found by race and ethnicity, by age, all of so many different parts and aspects of people's life are, impact. I agree. I think it's really important that we find ways to better integrate across communities. And for some people, age can be a leveler, or it provides an opportunity for people around aging programming, and to be able to ensure that there's more integration, but it has to be considered in the design. So as we move forward and as recommendations are developed from this report, it will be very important that that multiple aspects of people identities and ways to bring people together across communities would have to be fundamental, or it won't happen. So it'll be really important in moving forward on these recommendations.
Yeah, and thanks so much for that, Karen. I definitely agree. And I think definitely, from our Division of Equity and Social Justice, we take an intersectional approach when it comes to the county's work to address systemic inequities. And we know that, identities are layered, and you can't turn off one part of your identity. And, there might be spaces where only one part of your identity are accepted and others aren't. And so I think what will be really critical in our next steps in building the action task force is really bringing together a intersectional division of collaborators and community members. So we make sure that services are responsive for LGBTQ folks, but also across other axes of identity. So really appreciate everyone bringing that up.
Mhm.
I will ask another question. This is someone just asking, will this PowerPoint presentation be shared with the participants? I know always a popular question during a presentation.
I think that's so important. So, because I believe in giving information back, both to communities and also to the participants that have taken, the time to really contribute share their life experiences. So yes, we will send to every participant a link to this video, a link to at least the websites where they can then access both the this presentation as well as the report and the executive summary. So often people engage in this kind of project, but if they don't hear back, they don't know what happened. So it'll be really important that both at this step we feedback, but that feedback to the participants, what we learned, but it'll also be important moving forward, even as next steps and through the action plan, that we make sure that it's well disseminated in the community and well disseminated among participants, so people can really know that their participation really does make a difference and will make a difference. So yes, I'm very pleased. We'll get this information out to every participant as well as widely distributed in the community.
Yes, plenty of information and data and resources, and deeply appreciate, how transparent and giving you are with all of the resources and data, Dr. Goldsen. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
One thing I did want to bring up, we did answer it, but wanted to just, surface it within the conversation. There was, I think, some questions about gender identity and representation of transgender, non-binary, gender expansive participants that I think in the beginning slide, when we're looking at demographics, wasn't included. So it was just a recommendation, to include, make sure to, center and include that information in the visual representations to, avoid continued, kind of erasure of the community. But wanted to just clarify in terms of the percentage of participants, if you wouldn't mind clarifying, Dr. Goldsen, that were transgender, non-binary, or gender diverse.
Sure. So it was 23.5%. So just about 25%, a quarter of the sample was transgender, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming. And we ensured that we looked by gender identity and expression across every variable, as we did by race and ethnicity and age. So you will find in the report, it was really important to us that that no part of the community was erased. So I'm glad that this question was asked so that we could highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll make sure, in future presentations to integrate those pieces in. And thanks so much for bringing that up. So we're right at the tail end of our Q&A. I know that there's still more questions, and we'll make sure that, we'll follow up with folks too. This is not the only opportunity to discuss and engage with this data and the report. This is part of an ongoing process. So wanted to send another huge round of applause and thanks to Dr. Goldsen for the amazing ongoing work and also this presentation. We deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Great. And so reflecting on this extremely rich data that was shared in the report, we wanted to continue to center community voice and provide an opportunity to hear from LGBTQ older adults in Santa Clara County in their own words. So we had the pleasure of connecting with 6 amazing community members, many of which are here with us today in the audience, who shared more about their experiences in a video that we're going to share. So I'll go ahead and invite my colleague Jordan to go ahead and queue up that video, and we'll be listening to some lived experience testimonials for this next portion of the conversation.
My name is Lisa Flynn. Pronouns are she and her, and I identify as a queer transgender woman. I definitely feel part of the LGBTQ community as a whole. That's become a huge part of my life since hatching as trans.
My name is Bob. I consider myself a gay man, so I guess I'm a member of the gay community. I came out very late. I was 27. And so that's different from many fellows today who come out much earlier.
My name is P-Sen Cheng. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am Asian older gay man. I'm a Buddhist, and I'm a tennis player.
I'm Mara Raquel Souza Munoz, and my pronouns are she, her. Identify as a two-spirit, and to understand, I think I'm pretty much pansexual because I fall in love with people's soul, and their body parts really aren't that important to me. I'm a pretty deeply spiritual person who I love people and I like to make connections, but I'm demisexual.
Hi, my name is Max, and I identify myself as a gay male.
My name is Danielle, and I'm bigender, but I think the word transgender is so beautiful, like a waterfall or something. And so when I'm social, I prefer to be feminine and really nurture people. And when I'm doing, I'm a machinist and I'm a geologist, I'm Daniel or whatever. And I'm just so happy that I've been able to be my feminine self in recent years. So he, she, whatever.
And I have to be thankful for the fact that that I've survived this long living with HIV/AIDS. I've lived through all the worst medications and the side effects. And here I am when I didn't expect to be alive. I expected to be dead 30 years ago. And here I am. So here and of course that affected my income during those years. So I don't have a big, huge retirement nest egg to pull on or any other kinds of access because probably my greatest years of income went away from the 1990s onward.
The communities that I'm a part of and the identity that I express in those communities has been expanded.
I've had a lot of problems as I'm getting older. You know, I was in an ambulatory nursing home for a short amount of time, and I feel really ashamed, but you know, it's just so much stigma and marginalization, and especially if you're going to be institutionalized, which I've been a lot trying to remain independent because of my behavioral health. Or it's not really, I don't call it behavioral health. I call it mental health challenges. And I really struggle because it's hard to integrate into different communities when you have layers upon layers upon layers of stigma, you know, and I've faced that. But however, I know that it's made me a very strong and resilient person.
Part of the worst part of being an older adult, especially a gay one, is social connections. Right now, the pandemic sort of ruined everything, but hopefully it's over, and I'm waiting on a booster, so I feel comfortable in any situation with people, and I'm a tactile person, so I like to hug people, and I miss that.
I would just say that usually we are invisible because generally most of the community is not 60 plus years old, which I am. So that's kind of one of the hard things to do with, that we're just invisible.
The most important services to me as an older adult, I would think it's the environment for you to build a community, to build a support system, because you know most of us don't have kids. And as we grow older, we need friends' support or the family we choose to support us.
You know, I'd really love to see a retirement community that was a MYOB, you know, mind your own business. You know, nobody needs to know exactly what we are, but this is our community, and our activities in the rec hall are drag queen bingo, and we can dance with each other and not worry about stares or people staring, or, you know, and just be comfortable and be ourselves and really enjoy our retirement years. But it's sad that I'm finally getting, after 25 years, you know, completely independent housing that I can afford. And it took 25 years.
I think everybody should have at least the knowledge of dealing with the will, the living trust, the probate process. Yeah, because I learned that the hard way.
The waiving of some of the incidental costs for my health care because I'm low income. Other services tend to be provided through friends and family. My rent is not what it might be, and that's because I do a lot of things for my family.
Let me just preface that with saying that I carry huge privileges because I came out, I've worked in tech in the Valley, Silicon Valley for 30 plus years. So I realize I carry this privilege that I had all this stuff just given to me. And I know lots of trans girls who do not have that. So it's nothing to do with being old, but just being trans in our society means frequently you're just on your own. And it just breaks my heart. So anything that would help support trans girls.
The support I get these days, the first one is the Avenidas LGBTQ programs, like the walking group, like the song appreciation group. I get to enjoy the program and I get to make friends there. That's one I really like. And then my partner and I also joined the meditation group offered by San Francisco's open house.
The contact that I was put with was Thomas Kingley, and at first it was Zoom calls because of the pandemic, and later on it opened up till he was allowed home visits, and it was good to see somebody in person, and I've been with him 6 months or so, and it has been so good to know there's people out there if you can just find them. And I was so depressed that I was suicidal. So basically, this avenue is saving my life.
I thought it was important to complete the LGBT survey because I felt that the county government need to know what they were doing right and other things that they could do more of. And so the survey provided a platform to address some of those questions, and there were enough comment paragraphs where you could basically elaborate and not just answer yes or no and whatever. So that was a good opportunity.
I think it's really important to complete the older adult survey, especially because over all this time, nobody's really kept any statistics of our community and nobody's asked questions. And so, and if we are able to answer honestly and we can get a good statistics about our community, I think it would really be beneficial, and I really wanted to participate.
It's really hard to know what is needed unless we're asked. And one thing that I notice as a transgender person is there are a lot of individuals that could be like me and be out, and they are not. And I interact with them, and they describe their suffering and their lack of recovery, both economic and socially, because of the suppression that they've been through. And I try to do everything that I can to help and meet with them and listen to them, but I'm puny compared to what organizations can do to help people and or assist people who are assisting people. So the survey informs like what needs to be done.
What I hope comes out of releasing the results of the survey are that we become a little less invisible. People say, oh, there are older trans people, there are older gay people. I didn't know that. So maybe just a bit more awareness of us being here.
After we find out the findings of the survey results, of course, we would like to see the county to support the most important issues collected from the survey.
Being an older person, the advantage that I see is you get perspective. You can see things. Nothing trips you like it used to. And you're a little more adventurous because you know where your safety nets are and you know friends. So at least you're all getting old together. So that helps.
One thing I love about being older LGBTQ adult is as you grow older, you get more experiences with your life, so you feel more freedom about your life. And you know, you kind of figuring out what is important to you and what is not.
I finally feel free to be myself. You know, I feel like I've been hiding who I am and my identity and feeling like I'm always not myself and not authentic. It's very freeing for me to be a senior. It really is. And I'd like to be more with our community, with the senior community. Mm-hmm.
The wisdom that I've gained and the ability to be empathetic with people unlike myself and finding myself changing to be a kinder, more nurturing person. And that helps me to reach my more feminine goals too. So aging is not all bad. It's not great, but it's not all bad.
Well, I would just say that as you age, you're not alone, whether you're gay or straight or bi.
So what I love about being an LGBTQ senior adult is that I love being trans. I love every day that I'm trans. Since hatching not too long ago, I can finally be me. Having been led such a suppressed life for so long, the fact that I can now be me is so important. That's what I love.
Wow. Every time I watch that video, I gain new knowledge and perspective, and I'm extremely humbled. Want to send another heartfelt thanks to our folks that shared their experiences, to Lisa, to Bob, Max, Peason, Mara, and Danielle. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your gifts with us. Thanks also to Luis Pedro Castillo Pictures, who was our videography partner in creating this video. And thanks also to Avenidas for your support in connecting with community members. So in thinking through everything that we've heard today, in addition to hearing from community members, we also wanted to share a service provider perspective. It's my pleasure to introduce Annalisa Del Panal, who is the Chief Executive Officer for SourceWise, a leader in services and supports for seniors in Santa Clara County.
Thank you, Daniel, and good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay before I begin? Okay, great. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here today and to join the LGBTQ+ Older Adult Town Hall to celebrate the accomplishments of so many that worked in this project. Dr. Goldsen, Daniel Moretti, Maribel Martinez, and the over 20 community-based organizations. And most importantly, thank you to those individuals that trusted us with your feedback and experience. Without you, this would not have been possible. And of course, thank you for inviting me to share a little bit of our perspective and to share this virtual space with you. My name is Annalisa Del Penal, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of SourceWise. SourceWise is the area agency on aging in Santa Clara County. And as a provider, a funder, and an advocate for older adults with disabilities and their caregivers, I cannot emphasize how important this extensive body of work is, specifically identifying and uncovering barriers to services and to those who are accessing those services, understanding more specifically the varied experiences across the county for individuals seeking services. And specifically factors that play into that, like sexual orientation, gender identity, and how these intersect with both race, ethnicity, age, income, ability, and geography. It's definitely an extensive and very interesting data study. And personally, when I see critical areas like safety and health and legal assistance, and just a general reluctance for accessing services that are clearly needed, it's a reminder that we still have a long way to go when it comes to building equity and reducing health disparities in our county. But at the same time, it is motivating to me and inspiring to me that this body of work can be brought back to our SourceWise team, to our advisory council, to our governing board, so that we can look at leveraging the data and creating a data-informed designed approach as we're looking at objectives and goals and serving the LGBT population in Santa Clara County. We know that long-term and sustainable solutions don't happen overnight, and they certainly don't happen in silo. So as we are looking to build strong collaborative partnerships and increase client input and have them guide us through this process, I very much look forward to a potential task force in Santa Clara County so that this body of work and all of the feedback that we have been entrusted with really becomes a living statement to our collective commitment to supporting policies and programming that are inclusive and that are particularly serving the needs of the LGBTQ plus community. So thank you again. And with that, I'll turn it over to Daniel again.
Thank you so much, Annalisa. Deeply appreciate it. And thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for all that SourceWise does. So while the main focus of today has been on sharing the findings and recommendations from the survey, we want to build in a little bit of time to reflect and hear your input. So please know that today's event will not be the only opportunity to provide input. And this is just one step within an ongoing process. To help lead us through some reflections, I'll invite my colleague, Sarah, who's going to share a little bit more about how we'll be doing the next section.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And tonight, folks, we are going to be doing a little bit of a Mentimeter activity. So this is the Mentimeter that we have available. Using your phone device, you could go ahead and scan the QR code. So using your phone, turn on your picture app, scan the QR code, and it will bring you to our Mentimeter app. I'm going to also ask Jordan behind the scenes to go ahead and put the Mentimeter right up in the chat. I see it right there. Thank you so much, Jordan. So feel free to log on. We'll give folks maybe 30 seconds to be able to log on. Again, we're going to be doing 4 simple questions just to get some reflections as to what you folks thought of the data that was shared and some of the stories that were shared. So feel free to log on Mentimeter as folks continue to log on, and it's going to continue to bring folks on. Again, feel free to click on that link or scan the QR code. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the Menti, and we're going to go to our first question. In 1 or 2 words, what feelings are sitting with you after hearing the survey results and lived experiences? And you should see that prompt on your device again. I'll go ahead and read the question one more time. In 1 or 2 words, what feelings are sitting with you after hearing the survey results and lived experiences. I'm going to ask my colleague Daniel, do you have any feelings after hearing or sitting with the survey results? I know you've sat with the survey results for about a week now, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. I think I see some of the reflections that I was feeling. I think what first came to mind was humbled. I think I'm still kind of really touched by the testimonials, but I think definitely invigorated, ready to take action is how I'm feeling in terms of really committing to community after they've shared and entrusted us with their stories. Now taking it upon us to take action and create some responsive services.
Yeah, and some of these responses I'm seeing is hopeful, inspired, humble. Those are the big ones that multiple folks are entering. And then I'm seeing excitement, moved, energized, ready for action. But I also see words like sad and disappointed, humbled by the testimony, heartful, elder care. A lot of these are very valid emotions that people are feeling after seeing these, but excitement, hopeful, inspired, humbled. Those are some of the bigger words that we're seeing here. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. So we'll move on to that right now. So the next question we have for y'all, what parts of today's town hall presentation resonates with you the most? And you could do it in one sentence, maybe a couple sentences, and we'll go ahead and read that off. But what parts of today's town hall presentation resonates with you the most? I see video, lived experience, loneliness, video testimonials, video testimony. Absolutely, that's a very big sticking point. And again, it's really the lived experiences that color the data that was presented within this presentation. Other things I'm seeing here: loneliness, testimonials and demographics, the video of queer trans elders. About 50% did not have a will. The lack of Black and Brown people interviewed. Yes, we definitely need to take an intersectional approach and ensure that BIPOC voices, Black, Brown, Indigenous voices are represented in the video. So that's great feedback, and thank you for sharing that. Results on poverty, lived experience, shared experience, and memory loss. The data was enlightening and the video was useful. Hearing the older adults' lived experiences, yes. I'm going to read a couple more. The diverse nature of lived experiences. Finally, the disparities are documented and captured. Important information. Now what? Now it's time to take some action, right? Let's go ahead and move over to the next prompt. And the next prompt is going to have 6 recommendations that is going to be in your purview. So of the following project recommendations, which 2 would you make the highest priority? Again, of the following project recommendations, which 2 would you make the highest priority? And some of those recommendations are to provide LGBTQ cultural competency trainings for aging service providers, to prioritize COVID-19 prevention and aid for LGBTQ older adults, to dedicate ongoing funding for tailored social services or social activities, services, and programs for LGBTQ+ older adults, strengthening and staffing at adult protective services and investigation enforcement and in supports for LGBTQ older adults experience abuse, developing LGBTQ-focused affordable housing for older adults, and develop LGBTQ community volunteer registry to connect LGBTQ older adults with community members to provide and support short-term care. Daniel, any of these numbers look out or stand out as surprising to you?
Not surprising. And I know it's hard because all are important priorities. And it's not to say that we're only going to focus on 2, but kind of putting together a work plan and a timeline. Seeing, kind of the top 2 right now are develop LGBTQ+ focused affordable housing for older adults. Definitely agree with that. And then dedicate ongoing funds for social activities and services tailored for LGBTQ older adults. Those both really resonate with me. And yeah, it's just really appreciate everyone's input and feedback and thinking through this.
Yeah, and thank you folks so much for participating. We have one more question for y'all. And this last question, what is your greatest hope for the future of LGBTQ+ older adults in Santa Clara County? Again, what is your greatest hope for the future for LGBTQ plus older adults in Santa Clara County? For me, it's really data makes recommendations, creates policies, creates programs, creates change. And I just love the fact that we have this report to refer to when we talk about making policy and program recommendations. How about yourself, Danielle?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I love that we are celebrated and connected. I think definitely the celebration piece and, the resilience within the community we saw through the survey. So really honoring that and celebrating that, I think is a really important piece.
Yeah, I'm going to read off some of them that folks are sharing. So justice, eliminating discrimination, live their true lives, build a strong community among us. Yes, that we are celebrated and connected, that we are visible, safe, and constructive members of a general population. Equality and equity, eliminating discrimination, program and awareness, a happy life, of course. Good health, a high quality life, and equity. Wonderful, wonderful. Continued communication security. I hope that this is not just a one-year program. It will take a long time to meet all of these priorities as people come on board. So wonderful feedback. Thank you so much, folks, for participating in our Mentimeter. Daniel, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you.
And thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for all of your insightful feedback. As we mentioned, today is just the start, and we invite everyone to continue to stay involved as you're able to. And also, my colleague Jordan is going to put a link in the chat for a brief interest form. This is an opportunity to express your interest in either staying up to date on the project or to express your interest in joining the Action Task Force. That was one of Dr. Goldsen's priority recommendations as next steps to respond to the data. So if you click on that link, you can complete the form. We'll also include it in the follow-up email that we'll send out as well. So we're now at the close of our event, and I wanted to say thank you to my amazing colleagues, Sarah and Jordan, for all of your ongoing collaboration, and to Maribel Martinez for your leadership in creating this effort. A huge thanks again to Dr. Goldsen for your invaluable partnership and all of the heart and soul you poured into this project and over the years. You have given the County of Santa Clara an amazing gift, and you have been an absolute pleasure to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And a huge thanks again to the advisory committee and the project collaborators who are represented on the screen. Just want to quickly read their names to provide the acknowledgement. AARP California, African American Community Service Agency, Avenidas Rainbow Collective, Baymek Community Foundation, Billy DeFrank LGBTQ Community Center, City of San Jose, Parks, Recreation and Neighborhood Services, County of Santa Clara, Department of Aging and Adult Services, Gilroy Senior Center, Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley, LGBTQ Wellness, County of Santa Clara Supervisors Mike Wasserman, District 1, Cindy Chavez, District 2, Otto Lee, District 3, Susan Ellenberg, District 4, and Joe Simidian, District 5. PACE Clinic, Santa Clara Family Health Plan, Saratoga Area Senior Coordinating Council, Santa Clara County Public Health Department, Santa Clara County Getting to Zero, Santa Clara County Senior Care Commission, SourceWise, the Health Trust, and the Q Corner, a program of the County of Santa Clara Behavioral Health Services Department. Lots of love and thank you so much to the advisory committee and partnering organizations. And in closing, once again, the biggest thanks to you, all of our participants who created space with us tonight, and to our vibrant LGBTQ older adult community members who shared their stories both in this video and through the survey. Thank you all, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Have a great night.
Thank you.